That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back to The Pulse. This is Mallory reporting live from the ASU+GSV Air Show, and I have a very special guest with me, Nick, the president of San Francisco Bay University. Nick, tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to the Bay Area.
So my family, of course, is out here. It's one of the key factors that brought us back out into the Bay Area and California in general. But I think more broadly, this was an opportunity to do what I've been thinking about for years, which is how do I disrupt higher education? How do I get myself into a position where we are not doing the same old, same old? I mean, we're doing 1950s, some would argue 1850s higher education right now across the nation. And what I really was excited about was being in a place like San Francisco Bay University, where we have a significant, unrestricted, I'll call it an endowment of about $250, $260 million to be able to do the kind of things for students that I've always felt was important to do in higher education. Our tuition is just under $8,000 a year undergraduate tuition, and our graduate tuition is around the same, a little bit higher, about closer to $10,000 a year. But really providing affordability and accessibility to students, largely first-generation students of color, but with a model of education, really provide the concierge service that you get at most universities that are high-end, elite, quote-unquote, universities, but without the cost. But we also are looking to disrupt higher ed in other ways. And the dirty little secret in higher education is that, in the realm of faculty, is that faculty are not trained in how to teach. Over 98, 99% of faculty have never been educated in how to teach. What other industry in the world do you hire people to do where your main labor force is not trained in how to educate or do the work that we ask them to do, the primary work? So as a faculty member myself, as a former tenured faculty member, I understand the importance of teaching. And my experience is kind of about a third. A third of faculty are great. A third of faculty are okay. And a third, maybe 25% to a third, are really not very good at what they do. But we keep them in that place, and we keep reinforcing oftentimes bad behavior in higher education. So what we're doing is we're creating a whole area of work around teaching faculty members how to teach, with the idea that we're going to coach them up and help them become better instructors. Because right now the standard is not adequate. And the standard shows in many different ways. The Inside Higher Ed article around completion rates. Its average is 60%. Well, that gives higher ed, in my opinion, a D. Who would accept a D? And some of that is the faculty. Some of it is how we structure everything around the student. We're looking at comprehensive wellness as a critical area for us in order to really transcend student retention rates to where we would expect them to be. Our North Star right now is around 80%. We're looking to have done. Because, by the way, we are acting like a startup university. With this endowment, with this quasi-endowment, unrestricted endowment, whatever you want to call it, we are able to act like a startup because we have no restrictions. We're hiring all new faculty. The faculty themselves will be teaching 9 courses a year. We will be operational 12 months out of the year, so students can graduate in 3 to 4 years, depending on the type of program we're looking into. We're looking at creating a 90-unit undergraduate, 90-credit undergraduate program. which makes all kinds of sense because no one says there's anything magical about 120 as a credit, as a necessity to graduate and do well. In fact, it's somewhat artificial, the 120 credit, and oftentimes it's laced with classes that are irrelevant to a student's development. So, redesigning, restructuring faculty, looking at comprehensive wellness. We're going to offer unlimited mental health services for all of our students, but really look at all the wellness factors: mental health, physical health, financial health, which, by the way, is often a proxy for mental health concerns. So we need to be able to address financial literacy and life literacy for our students, spiritual health, and so forth. It's really the big health factors. Nutritional health is another area. So, and then you figure, so that's wellness. We've already talked about faculty, wellness, and then we also are looking at around our student services and how we're structuring classes. All of our classes are going to be capped at 20. So 20 is a magic number we're using. Could be 22, could be 23 maybe. But right now what we do know is anything larger than, say, 25, if it's online, it's a webinar. If it's in person, it's impersonal. And so what we're really trying to do is say, how do we change the classroom experience itself? The sage on the stage doesn't work. 3-hour, 2-hour, 1-hour lectures doesn't work. So what we're also designing in this faculty and instructor development model is how do we expect teachers to be or instructors to be in the classroom, both around what are the learning activities that are going to be happening in the class and then what are the learning outcomes that are later going to happen. So we're going to ask our students to answer the big questions in an interdisciplinary way in those courses, in our core curriculum, which is another innovation, changing how we do the core curriculum. So let me go back to student affairs. We are going to have what are called cohort counselors. We haven't come up with the right name yet, but basically the idea is every 20 students is going to get a cohort counselor who's responsible for meeting with them, ensuring that they're getting their needs met, and they're not slipping through the cracks. And what are we doing well and what are we not doing well so that we can course correct. And we can course correct on a dime because we're not laden with the baggage of other institutions. I guess the last thing I'll bring up is we're not going to do work in the area of student athletics. It's a huge burden for students to pay for athletics. I mean, generally the average student pays about 10% of their tuition toward, let's say, men's golf. Well, that's not okay. But what's good about athletics and what they teach us is if you wrap around services around the student athletes in a significant and financial manner, they actually graduate. Well, let's do that for all the students. Let's not just focus on student athletes. I'm a big fan of college athletics, but if it's not making money and if students have to pay out of their tuition, their hard-earned tuition dollars, then I would say let's leave it to other people. We're going to do what we need to do in order to be successful.
Nick, this is incredibly comprehensive. I mean, it's just clear that you are thinking about the student experience from truly every angle. And so I have to ask, you're going to do a lot of work. What are your measures of success going to be?
That's a great question. So in the teaching realm, we've come up with a series of large, we're calling it the SFBU promise at the moment. These are large, if you will, competency-based areas. But really, there's 15 competencies specifically that we're aiming at showing the students are successful at. And then 43 behavioral indicators that are going to show they're successful in being tenacious leaders, globally competent. We've got a series of different areas that we're going to be focusing on. So that's one area. Certainly retention and graduation. That is a really important thing for us. We want students to graduate and we want them to get jobs. So our majors are going to be around a half dozen to a dozen majors. We're not going to do 60 majors. It makes no sense. When, you could just keep adding tuition costs to students unrestrained, that's how you get a lot of colleges with 60 majors as part of their curriculum in the guise of student choice, but it's really not benefiting students. What we know is there's probably about a half a dozen or a dozen majors that will lead students down a path of careers that will eventually lead to lifelong career success. Because we also know the majors used to be linked more to occupations. That's not really the case. And in the age of AI, you can just forget the fact that these majors are going to link to anything job-related. What you really want to do is focus on these competencies we're talking about so they can be successful lifelong. So we expect students to come back. We expect students to get skilled back up in different areas as jobs come and go, which they will be over the next, certainly, few decades.
This air show is focused on artificial intelligence, so it begs the question, where does AI have an impact in all these different initiatives that you're rolling out?
Well, it absolutely has an impact. I mean, our whole curriculum is going to be AI integrated. You know, when AI came about, I heard from some folks in the academic space, let's call it, that would say, well, we got to figure out how students are using AI so that we can catch them if they're cheating.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's not really going to work. And it's like any new technology, we want to just assume the worst of our students. Instead, let's assume the best. Let's help students learn how to use AI effectively, how to use it ethically, and how to be the folks that are creating an ethical AI in the future. So there are some dangers around AI, no doubt. But there are also some real positives that happen from AI. We want to create the leaders of that industry to make sure that they are going to show the way for the future.
So that's from the curriculum perspective. How are you thinking about integrating AI to impact the student experience? So I'm thinking about the ways that AI can help a student persist through their 3, 4, 5, 6 years at an institution, when they have that mental health challenge, when they have a food insecurity, but it's on a Saturday afternoon. We don't want to be in a position where our students can't get answers 24/7, but we also don't want to require our human staff members to be working 24/7. So where does AI come into the student experience impact in a meaningful way?
Well, I like the word you use, meaningful, because we talk a lot about the student experience as having 6 pillars, and one of them is multiple meaningful relationships. It's a relationship with faculty. We know that deep experiences with meaningful relationships with faculty are important, deep, meaningful relationships with staff, with their peers. So we're trying to create this wraparound, and there's nothing to say that they can't have a meaningful experience with AI as part of that. So we know, for example, we can be data informed of what the student is doing and not doing. Not so much in a big brother way, but more the idea of, we know if they don't go to the dining hall for a couple of days in a row, something's going on. But most people won't notice that. Even their peers may not be fully aware of that. But if they're not using their card to get this food, that'll tell us that something is triggering, so we could then have someone reach out to them. If they need mental health services, it should be available 24/7. If they need other services, it should be available. Many services can be offered through AI outside of the classroom periods.
Terrific. Where we started this conversation was your goal to disrupt higher ed. And I think we can all agree we're in an industry that is ripe for disruption. And it just sounds like you've taken a very unique approach to this. How much of what you're doing at San Francisco Bay University has been influenced by your long career in this industry and what you've seen work and not work at other schools?
Yeah, I really like that question, because that's really what this has been about, is the culmination of my 30 plus years in the industry and seeing what really works. The faculty that are there for their students, that deeply care about their students, we want more of them in the industry. Faculty that are not, we want less of them in the industry. And we've got an industry where faculty are perhaps overprotected, frankly. If we're really being honest, if you look back and say, go back to your undergraduate experience, who are the best faculty and who are the worst? We all can name them. But it's true of any industry, physicians, lawyers. We always want to go with the best. And in higher ed, we owe it to our students that we give them the best. So I think in that realm, it's certainly important. There's a lot of talk now about DEI and, the tropical challenges with DEI. Well, frankly, we've always had challenges around DEI in higher education. We've not done a good job, and that's why a lot of the DEI work came about, was because higher ed failed largely students of color, and frankly, we're still failing them. And this resistance to understanding how DEI is important as part of the process for students is frankly, as they say, anti-DEI. What does that really mean, anti-DEI? I'm against diversity. I want exclusion. and I want no equity, well, that's just nonsense. That's anti-intellectual. And that's what bothers me about the anti-DEI movement. It's anti-intellectual, which is what college should be about, is being intellectual, thinking through the things that we're doing in a meaningful way. So I think those are some examples I hope that shed light on that.
Nick, I appreciate that you have taken time out of your busy schedule at ASU+GSV to talk to me. What are you most looking forward to this week as we transition from the air show to the summit?
Well, I'm really interested in seeing what is the innovation that's taking place in higher education. I still think it's too slow. I think what we're doing is farther ahead than anyone else that I know in terms of what we're thinking about comprehensively to do it at San Francisco Bay University. But I am interested in when I see a topic on mental health, for example. I saw one of those. I want to know what they're doing around mental health. And are they really meaningfully able to impact student mental health in higher ed? You know, I've heard a lot of folks in higher ed when I talk about unlimited mental health services. Well, that's not what higher ed is about. Of course it's what it's about. If you want to limit it to only 10% of what the student does, the academic piece, then fine, you're going to be limiting who you're affecting. But if you really want to impact all students, you want to know more about what's happening, what's the long-term consequences of the pandemic. You know, I think there's a long tail for what's happening to students in terms of big T and little t traumas around the pandemic that we are not really thinking about. I want to understand how folks are using data to capture and understand students are in distress. And then when they're doing well, how do we urge them forward and build upon their strengths? So it's both. It's not just catching students and making sure they're taken care of, which is very important. But when the students are doing well, how do we keep encouraging them to keep doing better? How do we provide that resilience that allows them to succeed in lifelong careers? So all the stuff that we're talking about here at the summit is very exciting to me because I think a lot of the data-informed strategies, the AI strategies to capture some of this data and use it in proactive and pro-social ways, that's what I'm interested in.
Our industry is very lucky to have a forward-thinking leader like you. Where can folks find you if they want to connect?
So I'm easily found. Our website is SFBU, San Francisco Bay University, initials sfbu.edu. They can reach out to me anytime they want, talk more about higher ed and innovation, and I want to hear their ideas. When I said some of the things I said, I know are controversial, but let's talk. Let's have a dialogue. That is so critical to everything we do in higher education. Let's have a dialogue, and together we'll find a way through this. But as long as we can get rid of the old baggage and be okay with that, I think we'll be very successful as an industry moving forward.
And I hope that is true. Well, listeners, these go by so quickly, these quick conversations. We've been live from the air show. We thank you for listening. And Nick, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.